Welcome to the Teens Talk podcast, created by the Student Virtual Board of You Celebrate Diversity. You Celebrate Diversity supports students and teachers organizing locally, educating themselves and their peers, and taking action for inclusion and social justice. For more information, visit ycdiversity.org. Today, we're kicking off Season 2, which is all about community building. In this episode, we'll be discussing what community is and why it's so important. Today, I'm speaking with Zaira Rodriguez, a freshman at Washington University in St. Louis. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Season 2 of Teens Talk. This season is based on community building, so each episode will be something centered around that. My name is Lameese Makkawi. I'm a virtual intern for You Celebrate Diversity. Community is the backbone of culture. The right community provides you with much needed love and support. Everyone needs community, and it can look different all over the world. The important thing is building a community with the right intention, as well as understanding the possible obstacles that you could face. I'm going to give my co-facilitator a chance to introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Zaira. I am a sophomore college student right now. And yeah, I just wanted to do this because I have been involved with You Celebrate Diversity for a pretty long time, since my freshman year of high school. And I've always just enjoyed talking about any and all topics.
So the topic for this episode is, what is community and why is it important? And community can honestly be a lot of different things for everyone. It could be as small as a school club. It could be as big as like a nationwide community. I'm part of an African community in my local area, as well as different clubs and programs whenever I am in school or just going out of my way to join some. And they're all big and different, and they all look different, but they're all equally important to me. And they have made me who I am in a lot of ways. So I wanted to ask you first, what do you think community is and why do you think it matters?
Yeah, I think community to me means a group of people that share similar characteristics, similar interests and goals. And it can also be a place where people can feel like they belong and where they feel like they can freely share their ideas without being judged. Um, and yeah, it's just a big group of people who share or work towards a common goal. And to answer the second question, why I think they're important, I think it's important to um, create spaces where people feel like they belong. Um, yeah.
So mind you, for anyone listening or watching, we do have like brief conversations before the call just to kind of understand what we're going to be talking about. So if I ever refer to any notes, that's all I'm referring to. But I remember you mentioning collaboration and good communication and bringing I can't speak, bringing people together. And I just wanted to like ask more about that. How are some of those like attributes that are just as important? How can they actually be benefits, like directly to a person? For instance, like why is communication important? Like, why is that something? Because honestly, in a lot of communities I'm in, that's something we tend to forget. We kind of either speak over each other or we try to just never even speak about the situation and forget about it, which is also not good. So how do you think communication helps people truly, and how do you think that should kind of be like facilitated, or how do you think that should work?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like communication, you with your example with your own groups, it helps establish, I guess, just kind of respect. So letting people speak whenever you know, and also just like making sure that everybody else is also engaged. So not just letting one person take over and speaking for the whole group, encouraging engagement with the rest of the group and making sure that everybody's voices are being heard. Um, yeah, I think that's one of the big things about community. You need to hear everybody else's opinions and perspectives.
So going into that, I remember we talked a little bit about how to kind of like mediate or diffuse situations when they arise. So I know having these conversations and not having people speak over each other can actually be kind of hard if it's like a topic that's really important to everyone, right? So what are some ways that you think people should kind of go, especially if you're like a leading the club or just somebody who wants to help? How do you think people should go about mediating those conversations?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think it's really important to remain calm. Also, I think it's very important before you start your meeting or when you first start your meeting, when you first start your group, that you establish ground rules. I mean, we talked about that at the beginning, right? We established our ground rules. So that's very important. Establish your ground rules and remind people of those ground rules and how we need to respect them whenever things get a little too heated. Um, Sometimes that's hard though. So if conversations do get really heated and there's a lot of conflict going on within that meeting, that group, um, I think depending on the situation, maybe what is being said, um, try to stay neutral. Obviously, that's hard, but sometimes I think staying neutral, you know, how to explain this? Sometimes it's hard to stay neutral, and you can't always do it in every situation. Um, so depending on the situation, I think being neutral is okay. But if people are being directly attacked or targeted, maybe it would be best to separate the parties involved and have a discussion or a talk with both of them, but especially the party that was specifically attacking, um, I think would be the best.
Thank you. Yeah. Honestly, that's something that kind of gets like difficult because, like you said, it's something like staying calm is honestly important, even though it's definitely not fair to anyone who's involved, especially if you're a person who is like an example, if you're a Black woman who's constantly met with the stereotype of being,
Mhm.
mad and overreacting and you're literally just existing. I totally
Mhm.
understand, if you don't want to do that because you're honestly
Mhm.
valid for that. But I also understand the benefit of trying to be calm and trying to just kind of hear everyone out because I also don't want my thing for me is I also am a very passionate person, but like,
Mhm.
it gets in the way sometimes. Like sometimes
Yeah.
I've been learning and I've been trying to practice how to better hear people out and try to really just like,
Mhm.
um, you know, not be too like I just don't want to like speak over other people. That's my worst fear. I don't want to ever
Right.
speak over other people. So I'm glad you brought that up. But
Mhm.
actually, before we get into some of the other things, I actually really wanted to ask you, what communities are you a part of, or do you specifically joined for any reason at all?
Yeah. So, I think first of all, I am part of like the Latinx Hispanic community. Um, I am also, well, since I am in college, I'm just a part of the community at my college, in general. But specifically, the groups that I'm involved in here at college are the Association of Latin American Students. I'm specifically in the Community Engagement Committee. So for short, the Association of Latin American Students, it's ALAS. So I'm part of the Community Engagement Committee in ALAS. And my main role is PR. So I am in charge of marketing all of our events and flyers, flyer distributions, creating the flyers. I'm also now a part of service in the community engagement. So reaching out to organizations in the St. Louis community and the community that I'm a part of. I am a student in Washington University in St. Louis. So that itself is a huge community. So I'm part of that community. I'm part of the Latinx and Hispanic community. Um, in WashU specifically, I am involved in the Association of Latin American Students, which also stands for, so ALAS is what it stands for. Um, in ALAS, I'm part of the community engagement committee, and I am the PR lead. So I'm in charge of marketing our events and flyers, distribution, creating the flyers, all of that. And then I'm also part of service. So um, I'm in charge of reaching out to the St. Louis community and any way that we can help them, we try to get involved. I'm also a Rodriguez scholar, um, which is really important to me just because that's where I met a lot of my friends, very interesting and lovely people that I have met. And then I also work for our campus life here at school. I am specifically part of it's called Lead Project, but I'm a programming assistant, so I just create events for students on campus. And then lastly, um, I also volunteer at a pro se asylum clinic with the St. Francis Community Services. So I support individuals in filling out the asylum application. My specific role in that is I translate for the attorney and the individual filling out the asylum application. And I will be doing this again in December. So I'm really excited. But yeah, that's a big list of what part of the communities that I'm a part of right now.
No, that's amazing. I love that. I honestly think that it seems like a lot of what you're like focused on is around your own community, which I really appreciate. And I think people giving back to the communities is amazing. Also, I wanted to ask, like, these are all such big roles. Like, what would you think? And you can divide it for what you do for the asylum help, and what you do for ADAS and the Rodriguez Foundation scholarship. I'm so
Mhm.
sorry. I think it's scholarship.
Scholarship, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. But yeah, what's the toughest things about or parts of doing those roles for those organizations?
Yeah, I think, I mean, just like with any community, right? With any big community, especially trying to make everybody happy, which is not always possible, but the hope is that everyone is left feeling a little satisfied with the decisions that are being made. So, but still like trying to keep everyone happy and like reaching a consensus can always be really hard with any big community. Also finding the time can be pretty difficult. People have different schedules and sometimes things come up out of nowhere and you have to rearrange everything. The most unexpected things can happen when you're creating an event. It can be pretty frustrating. It can be a lot, but it always gets figured out. But I think those, what is it, two things are one of the biggest challenges.
No, you're right, because I did ask like a three-part question. So no, honestly, I was actually gonna ask about that. So you talking about consensus was interesting to me because I've also learned a lot about consensus through You Celebrate Diversity alone. Because I didn't realize this was even a thing you could do. I really did only think that everything was a vote. And the reason I like consensus is, it's like practicing inclusivity. Everyone's voice is heard. You're kind of getting a chance to step back and be like, maybe I don't have to get what I like really want, but more what I'm comfortable with, as long as everyone can be like happy. Now of course in like certain situations maybe not, but yeah, I love that idea of including the entire community. And it can be hard, especially even if they're grown adults. It's so hard to get people to listen to each other. But I was going to ask, when you brought up that part about having a hard time with schedules and events and things going wrong, I started to think like, I feel like for me, I've always either led a club or program or something, or just been in events like building. And I've noticed there's like such a difference pre-COVID and then afterwards. And I was going to ask you about that because I feel like, everyone was a lot more inclined to like, get together and do things now. I totally understand the impact COVID had on people. So this is not like a dig at all. But I think, with people having such a hard, like, experience with the world changing so quickly and the uncertainty of it all, and everybody like having to just practice social distancing and being virtual and remote, I think came back, first of all, having a hard time socializing. I include me included, but having a hard time socializing, but then also having a hard time with just like mental health and keeping up with the day-to-day because of how exhausting everything was. So I guess for me, one of my biggest like problems is just like, or not problems, but like conflicts for what I want to like see how I can like kind of resolve this is just how do I, get people back together? How do I get people to kind of want to do things again? Because I've just noticed like a difference in society, like where everyone's just kind of themselves. And I totally get why. It's not like the pandemic is over. I'm just saying, it's hard to kind of build that community, especially people aren't willing to do it virtually. So
Yeah, I mean, I also want to say same. Sometimes it's hard. My first year of college last year, I was not involved actually in college at all, like with my community. And this year I barely started getting back into it. I think it's just important to remember, um, like how, but this is gonna sound very like cheesy, kind of funny that we're even like talking about it, but like just remember what part of the communities that you are, like the part of communities that you're a part of. My main thing was that I was new to this community. I am originally from Colorado, so I came here to school and I was like, I don't really know this city, this community, this school overall that much. And back at home, I remember I was doing a lot for my community, and here I was just not. And I feel like I myself didn't feel like I was doing anything. And I didn't feel, I don't know how to say, I just didn't feel like I was doing my part. And I think that as human beings, we should each, like, it's our civic duty to do just like the smallest thing, at least for our community and our people. So that's how I started getting a little bit more involved this year. I was like, okay, COVID happened, COVID is still happening. But with the right measures and like being careful, I am still able to do all these things and provide for my community. So that's what I did. That's what I've been doing. So that's how I've been getting a little bit more involved.
no, honestly, I think for me, like, because I'm totally aware COVID is still happening, so I don't expect everyone to want to come in person. But I kind of hope, and I can't honestly blame people because even when I was in school, because I'm just now in college, so when I was in high school during the pandemic, I also did not want to attend classes. I didn't want to do any of it. It was exhausting. I totally get it. But I was hoping that maybe over some time people could get more comfortable with meeting virtually or just finding other alternatives because I totally understand, especially if you're high risk. Not even, I totally get that. But no, honestly, just showing up for your community is so important. I think the reason I feel like this needs like to be a series or to even talk about community building is a lot of people get hung up on the word community and assume like a way bigger scale. Like they just assume that it has to be some big thing you're a part of that you just want to keep to yourself. But that's just not what it is. Like I personally, I when you mentioned earlier, you and the people you were able to meet through those communities, like I have I have different kinds of communities, but I would like to say like my number one is just my friend group. Like they're like some of them are lifelong friends, some of them I made a couple years ago, some of them this year. Regardless, like they're just some people I really respect and care for, and like it's just a really mutual love. Like, and I feel like people really put it almost seems like it's not has nothing to do with this, but I promise it does. People put, romantic love as on this pedestal of the only thing you should be focusing on, right? It's either that when you find success and then you get married and then that's it, but it's just like that's not it. You need people. I don't care what anyone says, community is important. And I don't like where things are going, where everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people don't think it's important at all because unfortunately, I think some people are operating from like I've been part of toxic communities that I was not asked to be part of, I was born into. And so there are some rules, ideals, taboos I don't agree with, but I just have to kind of like deal with, I or had to deal with growing up before I really, found my voice. And I can totally understand that like restraint, but for people, especially BIPOC communities, first gen Americans, like the way I am as well, what do you recommend for any of them kind of hesitant to like, when I say join community, I mean literally joining a club or just finding a friend group. What do you have it like the advice you have for them for doing that out of being scared of what they experienced in their own communities of feeling gawked at, pressure to be perfect, just, all the toxic traits.
Yeah, wow, that is, I mean, I am also first generation American. So oh my gosh, I say maybe like the first step is looking into um the communities that are in your communities. Um,
Yeah.
it's such a good question though. Like what can they do for especially for students that or just people who like have never been a part of groups. Um, like what can be done? I think that's also up to the groups and the communities reaching out and um just like maybe holding information meetings, letting them know that this is a safe space, even though obviously like actions speak louder than words. But I think it might be up to the groups too. I feel like it's just like the people want to be like the people have to want to be a part of a community or a group, and it's also like the groups need to reach out. So it's like a two-way thing. Like it can't just be one person doing all the work, one person doing one like group doing all the work. But I don't know, that's a tough one. What can be done?
I think you answered it perfectly. I feel like you just said what it was. It's that that's why communities need to be inclusive, or else people fear joining them because it's not a safe space for them. They're not going to feel a part of an actual community. They're just going to feel like, okay, I'm here, and then there's me, and it's not a good feeling. So, you're right. That's the whole point of community. I'm glad you said it's a two-way street, and that both parts need to do their part. It's because that's the whole point of community. It's not just you alone. It needs to be everyone around you. That it needs to be for the betterment of you as a people. And so honestly, that's something that I've also tried. For me, I always, even though I was lucky enough to kind of be able to kind of separate the toxicity and see the real value, and still have see the benefits of how community played a role in my life. So I wasn't too scared to join other ones. If anything, I was way more excited to, because I wanted to join more inclusive ones, and that brought me a lot of happiness. But actually, I remember you talking about some of the like I remember we brought up some of the challenges and obstacles. And there's obviously the ones we talked about, things getting heated, not knowing how to mediate that situation, people not coming or joining, or schedule conflicts. But I also remember you saying, we're talking about like outreach a lot, right? You said that your job, your whole role was outreach. Community should be reaching out to people to have them join those places. How do you help your community grow? Because that tends to be the common issue for anyone who wants to join, grow a community. I know for me, when I would create clubs, programs, anything, the biggest, the hardest part was just finding those people to actually join. Because, I don't blame people. A lot of people have busy schedules, but it can be really disheartening if you constantly see that. And some people choose to just leave social justice and activism alone. They just don't want to even touch it anymore. They're tired. But yeah, what do you recommend to help people grow?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we also did touch on this a little bit, but networking, um, sometimes even networking with other people outside of your community can help a lot, to help your own community grow. Um, trying to get a little bit of recognition or like just like trying to spread information and the goals of your group because you never know, there might be people interested. Um, And social media right now is just, I mean, a huge thing. We got TikTok, we got Instagram, and you can just reach a lot of people through there. Um, so I think definitely just like networking in general and social media might just be a big thing that can help your community grow. Um, Holding information meetings, um, yeah, create an Instagram account, follow people, random people might help.
Yeah, that's also, I think one thing I would also add is just to like be okay if it fails. Like don't be embarrassed. Like that's one thing like for me, try to create so many things and sometimes you're just not around the right people. You know what I mean? You're not around the right audience. They don't really see the value in it. Maybe it takes some time, maybe it takes other people to hear about it. But don't give up. It's fine. Like if anything, I think it's a noble effort. I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it's really respectable that you really felt the passion and want to actually do this because you wanted to see change. But I think that's the common thing. I meet people and they're like, well, like, what are we even gonna do? Or who's gonna want to do it? Valid points, you know? Like I'm not even blaming you. Like that's what I used to think sometimes too. But after some time and like some real, work and passion, like I've been able to actually through, creating things, I was able to network, like you said, and I met a bunch of other communities that like just elevated like my want and passion for this. So and I was able to like find roles in there that served me and them. So yeah, I think it's pretty important. So I also remember some of the things of the ground rules that we're talking about. I actually remember asking you like what are some common ground rules that either you've created, implemented, or that you've just learned from in all the organizations you've been a part of.
Yeah, so I think the biggest one, and it's going to be like the most obvious one, respect, right? Respect for others, respect for their ideas. Um, Another thing is give others the opportunity, the opportunity to speak. This was also mentioned, touched on a little bit, when we first started, but you know, all the voices that are in the group need to be heard, and having somebody dominate the whole discussion can be a little intimidating for the rest of the group. So, and give others a chance to speak. One big thing that I think I've learned in all of them, is just don't assume bad intent. So sometimes people say things and they're not, they don't really have much of an understanding or knowledge about certain issues, and they don't always mean to intentionally hurt others or say harmful things. So sometimes it's good to just like somebody says something maybe a little bit out of pocket, and it's like, okay, like, do you know what that means? Let's talk about that. Most of the time people are like, oh, I'm honestly just like not really that informed on this issue. This is what I thought about it. And that can be an opportunity for you or the rest of the group to be like, okay, let's like teach you a little bit about this. And it can be a learning thing. It can be great. So don't assume bad intent has been one of the big ones that I've learned. But this was also touched on earlier. Whatever is said in that space stays in that space. This helps everybody, again, just speak their mind, and feel safe enough to do that. And being engaged. Um, you can't have a very fulfilling discussion if people are not actively engaging. Just be a great listener too. Just listen. I think we also talked about this in our meeting yesterday. Um, Sometimes people will just listen to listen, but are not actively listening. So actively listen.
No, exactly. I actively listen. That's one of the biggest things I think I've had to try to like okay, actively listening is like harder than people think, right? It's like it's not actually like in like in actuality, it's not like a hard thing to do, but like because of how we're all wired as society and because we're always trying to be right and like all this, it's honestly, you're just always trying to get your next point across. And yeah, you're not really listening. So it gets frustrating when you're talking to someone who like, they're like waiting for you to finish just so they can start talking, and that can totally be annoying. So that's something I actually am really glad you made a ground rule, because not a lot of people will touch on that, and then it becomes a big issue. People wonder why like everything is so heated. But no, and even like us, like, because we talk about all these things beforehand, right? But this meeting is still very like I'm still bringing up things I didn't bring up yesterday. I'm still talking. I remember yesterday you talking about just all the different programs you've been a part of, and I asked you if you did things before college or if this was just like a newfound passion for you. And it wasn't. You've been doing this, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about some of the work you've done before, and basically just like why you did it, how it impacted you, or maybe just how it kind of shaped you to be the person you are here.
Yes, I would actually love to. So I absolutely loved my high school like experience with um community engagement, social justice, and I think it literally all started with Youth Celebrate Diversity. So my freshman year, I went to the Cherry Creek Diversity Conference. I went to it my freshman year, and it was literally life-changing. And after that, I joined Youth Celebrate Diversity, and we even brought a conference into the Western Slope. So then we made the Mountain West Diversity Conference, and that was with a group that I co-founded with a lot of my friends in high school called the Spice Club, which stands for Students Promoting Inclusive and Civic Engagement. And so we worked a lot with You Celebrate Diversity, and within Spice Club too, we did a lot of mental health related things, as well as like don't not like saying the R word, because we found that a lot of people in general still don't know that the R word is a very derogatory term. Um, so we did a lot of programming with that. We did um Wellness Week, which is now actually like an annual, like a thing now, a tradition. So it's like a whole week dedicated to mental, physical, and spiritual and all types of health. And we make workshops. We used to do workshops during the school week, which was really great. So I was part of Spice. I was part of Youth Celebrate Diversity. Um, I also worked a lot with this nonprofit organization back home called Youth Power 365. And with Youth Power 365, I also did a lot of programming for high school students, that ranged from fun social stargazing kind of events to helping you with your career. Um, and also within Youth Power 365, I also became a part of the Dreamers Club, which was mostly focused on helping undocumented people um, find like resources for their future. Um, I also, because of all of that, thanks to all of those organizations, I was able to win the Princeton Prize in Race Relations. So that was really great. I won that my senior year, and it was literally all due to these great organizations that I was a part of. So that was also another community that um, I am a part of. I feel like that is most of the things before college.
That's amazing. Listen, like I don't think you're like that's genuinely amazing before college. Like that's insane. And that's what I swear, I'm not trying to be corny, but like that is genuinely the power of community. Like you met people, you networked, and it wasn't just for your benefit like beneficial gain or anything. It's just because, you know, you wanted to do it, but through that you were able to be exposed to all different kinds of people. And honestly, that's so my story is the same for Youth Celebrate Diversity. So I've actually, it wasn't the first thing that got me going. I was a part of other programs and clubs beforehand, but when I went to the first Cherry Creek diversity conference, I think my sophomore year, I went with my friend, and it was just like the first time I was in an area where like everyone, I mean, not everyone, I don't know, but like it seemed like seemingly everyone was so open-minded and inclusive. Like it was just such an amazing feeling. Like I've never felt that before. And it was just because even though I went to a really diverse high school and, you know, a lot of people that not only looked like me, but also came from my background, went there and came from where I live in my community, it was still cliquey. You know what I mean? Like, you know, not all the time. I think we still all really loved and enjoyed each other's cultures and still like had friends all the time. It wasn't like that cliquey, but for the most part, it was like Black kids with Black kids, Hispanic kids with Hispanic kids, Arab kids. Like it was just everyone by themselves. And when I went here, it's like, especially since you have to go to these it's not the workshops, it's the, I literally did a facilitating training. It's the workshops, but then also before that is it's like the conversation we all, I don't know why it's not coming to my head, but it's the conversation we all have. And these are all people you're just like you don't know who you're going to see in there. You know, it's all just people you don't meet, and by the end of the day you're like friends with all these other people. It's so cool. But yeah, through Youth Celebrate Diversity, I at the end of the convention I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. Or I mean, conference is so cool. My friends and I put our emails down. We're like, okay. And then we got an email about joining the executive committee, and then we joined that. So my junior year I was in that, and then senior year I was able to be one of the co-chairs and do the conference, and it was so cool. And I was just like, yo, like this is so dope. Like I need to keep doing this. So now in college, my hope is to find like a bunch more programs, because this is, it honestly, like you said, it's fulfilling. It's like it's something where I think even if you don't really understand why you're doing it, like you'll feel the impact. You know what I mean? Like over time you'll understand, because even growing up, like especially with immigrant parents, like they only know community. Like they don't know how to operate here without community. Like my parents are from Sudan, and like when they came here, I swear to God, they only chose Colorado because they had a friend here. So like they came here, they found each other, they helped each other register and vote, they helped each other learn English, they helped each other do business together and make, like it's beautiful the life they've created for themselves with little you know, English not even being their first language, barely their second. So it's just like, that's why I think it's beautiful. I think it honestly hurts to see people go, you know, shy away from it so much, because I'm like, no, you need people, bro. Don't let people think you got to do this on your own. You don't have to, you know. But moving on from that, I wanted to also, I remember I asked you about any other communities that you're a part of that aren't directly related to your identity or background, like racially, you know, with your sexuality, just anything that has to do with, you know, anything oppressive. Are you part of any like communities that are just like random?
Yeah, so I think maybe like I don't view it as work because it's something that I really enjoy doing. But like I guess it is considered my work. My with campus life, we just create programs um for college students in general. So for example, for Halloween, we literally just created an event for pumpkin painting. Students just came in, got a little mini pumpkin, got their acrylic markers, painted their own pumpkin, and there was also like really fun fall treats that they could eat. So it's like a bunch of pastries. So I would say that is one of the communities that I am a part of outside of like my background and identity. Um, this is so funny. I've been trying to get into knitting for a long time. Um, hasn't been working the best because I have realized that I'm not the best like knitter, but there is a group here on campus. They're called String Theory, and it's basically our knitting and crocheting club. I go to it sometimes and I try to knit. Emphasis on the try. It's really hard, harder than one might think. So I am part of that. I don't know. I really enjoy books. I don't know if it's the book community. Um, love books. So I would say that I'm a part of that. I just picked up a new book in our campus bookstore called Beloved. I've heard really great things about it. Oh, yes, you said yes, yes. So I've heard great things about it. And I'm really excited to start reading it. I don't know, music. I really enjoy music. I will continue to talk about my playlist. Any chance I can get to bring it up, I will bring it up. I have a 90-hour playlist on Spotify, like every childhood song, every new song. If I hear a song on in Ross, in Marshalls, in Target, I will literally pull out my Shazam and add it to my playlist. Um, don't know if like there's a music community out there. I don't produce any music, I just listen to it. Those are the communities that I am a part of, that I feel like are not really related to my background or identity.
I also want to make something clear. It's okay if only the communities are a part of are just about your background identity. I was just curious because the next question I was going to ask you was, how do you think being a part of these communities that aren't attached to that, your background identity, kind of benefit you in a different way than maybe those other communities? Or are they, maybe harder in another way? What is that like for you?
Yeah, I think that with these communities, it's I think it's strange because you don't like the whole point I think sometimes of joining a community where you share the same interests is sometimes to also get like new perspectives on those same interests. But with these communities that maybe don't really have anything to do or like much to do with your background or your identity, they bring in like a completely different set of perspectives. Um, so you have people that maybe don't think like you, don't have the same ideas as you, but like you share this one interest. And it's very, very interesting because you're like, okay, like maybe I can get along with this person. Um, or like maybe we can be civil and not hate each other. Um, or just like maybe it's not like that you have completely different views on one thing. Maybe it's just like they look at it from like a different angle. And you're just like, I've never thought about that before. Um, also, I think it's great that I come from a community in Colorado where honestly most of the population is 50% Hispanic and 50% white. So with a lot of these communities here at school and in this school in general, I get to learn about so many different wonderful cultures, and it has been so amazing. Um, so just like sitting down and having a conversation while knitting with somebody that's not at all like completely like they're not Latina, the Latinx, they're not Hispanic. They don't come from immigrant parents. They don't speak Spanish like I do. Like, but learning about their culture and their different views in on life while we're trying to knit like dumplings from this like step by step instructions that they gave us is so amazing and interesting and completely different than what I would normally get at like my alas meeting, for example, where there is Latinx people, are Hispanic kids, there are people that, we're working towards this like common goal of having our voices heard in this like predominantly like white rich institution. Um, very different, very different for sure.
No, I love all the points you made because I'm also like a big music lover, just obsessed with music. Like I listen genuinely to like everything. I know I have to be that person. I listen to everything but country, yeah. But like, honestly, you listen to country? No, no judgment. Because here's the thing, like honestly, I have friends that do too, and I totally get it. It's just, it's just not for me. But I personally like I feel like with me, I've really connected with people through music too. And it's people I didn't think I'd connect with because the only reason I say like I feel like it's really important to maybe try your hardest to also be in communities that aren't just directly related to your identities, because not all the time, for sure, not, and I hope it's not all the time, but a lot of the time we just kind of identify ourselves as how we're oppressed, right? And like it's important because it's real, and you have to understand the implications and the racism and all I'm gonna edit that out, but and all the systems in place that keep people oppressed. But at the same time, you're still a person, and I hate the idea that because of the things we have to face, we were reduced to just that, like that's why I try really hard to lean into my hobbies and find people that like that, and purposely make friends of different interests, and where we can kind of connect on things like that, because it gives us the chance to just take a break. Like I totally care about social justice and activism, but at the same time it's really exhausting, and also it can feel really heavy, especially if you're the one being affected by it, to only center and only think about it for like the entirety of the day. It's just too much. So I totally love that you have all those other outlets, because it's also important to your mental health. That's what I also, with community building, why it's also so important is because we are directly affected by what's happening around us in society and in politics, not just physically but also mentally. Like it's hard when you feel alone and hated, and like no one's in your corner, so you need to lean on each other, and so I was actually gonna what's it called, I was gonna ask, so we kind of have a portion, we're going to start doing this. We have a portion at the end of the episodes where we answer questions from people that sent them in. So since this is our first episode, I just decided to send some questions to some of my peers and just like people I know from different programs. And for now, they like to keep it anonymous, but in the future, if people are comfortable sharing names, I'm totally down to do that. So the first question was, I'm in uni right now, and I don't know how to find my community. I understand that there's programs on the website, but I don't really feel like the descriptions are inclusive enough, and I don't know how to join and still feel comfortable being my full self. What should I do? So when I first wrote this down, I was thinking, that's a really valid point, because to be real with you, like in any school environment, like they're gonna chalk it up to me. They're gonna make it sound really, really good, really, really inclusive, but then you'll join and you'll feel really alone, and you'll feel really awkward, and you'll probably leave after the first one or two meetings. So I don't really know how you like can guess if it's gonna be that way or not. But I feel like so one thing I've heard recently, again, corny, but I still think I think it makes sense, is you have already failed by not trying, right? At least if you try, like you don't know if you failed or not. You could really find success. And I think the best thing for you to do is also for your own safety. If let's say you're like trying to join a certain community that seems really homophobic, and you're a person who is gay, maybe don't for the first meeting, maybe just try to get a feel, maybe ask some questions vaguely, try to get a feel where everyone in the room is and how safe it is before you put yourself on the spot. Because surprisingly, especially in college, like people will really come for you. And it's not something to scare you off at all. I don't want to ever make people go against being themselves and finding their voice, but it's definitely something to just be cautious of, especially if you're in an environment that's really hateful and you are a minority. But yeah, that's me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. It doesn't hurt to try and um say for like, because from what I am hearing, I don't know, that person maybe has not actually gone to like meetings for those groups. It wouldn't hurt to go and yeah, maybe say a couple of meetings, see the vibe, see how it is. Um, but I totally understand. Like I know it can be really hard. But that would just be my biggest suggestion. Try to go to those meetings of those groups. Um, yeah.
Okay. The next one was, I wanted to start a club, but I got a lot of pushback from my community. They said it wasn't appropriate to teach kids at a young age what it was to be gender fluid or to have any kind of sexual orientation or identity outside of the binary. How do I address this pushback without putting myself or others in danger? That's a deep one. I'm gonna let you take the first one on this one. But yeah, go ahead.
I think that it would be helpful to get maybe support from other communities as well, or like other people. Um, if this person went at it alone in their community, I think it would be helpful to find also people within their own community that might be able to support them. Um, because it's difficult just doing it alone. So yeah, find that group of people that can support you. Um, and when there is pushback, you're not alone. You have this group of people that can support you.
No, I totally agree. I've had pushback in some of the clubs I've tried to start or any other situations like that. And the best thing for me was just I had community, I had staff members that saw me for who I am and not trying to start problems. I had friends and other club members, other communities that were about what they said and actually like stood by me. And it literally alleviated the stress by like 1,000, honestly, because you don't understand the weight of like how much it's the weight of people hating on you for simply just trying to be more inclusive is insane. And so for me, I've grown to learn to like not take it too personal. I know it's genuinely it's stupid. It's so stupid. Like I don't really want to spend energy trying to figure out why you hate me so much because I know the reason. It's just prejudice. But I think everything you said, like I would just second that. Honestly, just finding more people to help you, I think is the best thing. All right, so last question. Somebody said, I really care about social justice, but I really just want to join a community that has nothing to do with my race. I like music, I like film, I like art. How do I find people that like these things too? Yeah, I'm gonna let you go.
Again, it's worth looking into um like your school if this is like within a school. Um Look at your school. There you would be surprised how many groups there are out there um in in your school. Um I know that this school has like a lot. It has like a fencing club. It has like a pottery club. I mean, there's a knitting club. Just like you would be so surprised to like how many different groups there are for different interests. So I would maybe suggest just maybe like looking at um those groups, looking for groups. If not, it's worth looking into like people that are also interested in that and creating your own. Um, yeah, totally valid too that you do not want to be involved in like things that have to do. I mean, we just talked about this. It's okay if you don't want to be involved in just like social justice or um things that have anything to do with your background and your identity. So yeah, look into those other groups that your school might be able to offer you.
No, I totally agree. Like you really would be surprised by how many like spaces there are for such niche activities. I once spoke with somebody who was a rock climber and had a very tight-knit rock climbing community and people of color. Like I didn't even think about that. So like for me, honestly, I also would just second that and say at the same time, like obviously be safe. Don't just, follow random people, but even things on TikTok where it's like a bit more public, you can find pages dedicated to such a specific like hobby of yours. Like I have pages dedicated to just music, then there's some that are just dedicated to just commentary, political commentary. And it's just honestly I don't want people to constantly go on TikTok the way I do, but it has helped me because I really do feel like, okay, low key, my feelings are kind of validated right now. Like you guys also like my interests. Like, okay, this is cool. I'm not alone in this. I'm not weird for this. Um, and yeah, like you said, like I recommend, if anything, not I recommend joining those multiple communities that cater to those different interests because not to overextend yourself. What I mean by that is like maybe don't choose a leadership position in like all of them because that might be really exhausting for you. But like I still think you should be like not should, but maybe you could try to just be a part of all of them in a like little ways. Like you go to this African Student Union culture night, and then the next week you go to your knitting club, and then the week after that maybe you go back to that, or you go to a different one. It's nice to explore. But with that, that'll be the end of this episode. I really, really appreciate all your feedback. It was so lovely getting to meet you and have this conversation with you. And I really hope everyone who watches this also understands the importance of community and takes something away from it. And hopefully this kind of ignites your passion for it. But before I leave, I want to give you an opportunity to say any last words or anything you want to just have people echoing in their heads before we end.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say thank you so much for letting me get on here. Um, and for anybody who's listening, just remember to take care of yourself. Daylight savings, it's getting darker earlier. For those of you who are students, it's also getting harder. So good luck on anything and everything that you have going on. Just remember to take care of yourself. Um, yeah, thank you.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider donating to support this work by youth activists across the country. Visit ycdiversity.org to make a donation or to get involved. For more information and updates, check out YCD's Instagram and TikTok at YCDiversity, along with our website.